When people think of Formula One, they think of speed, cars racing past at over 300 kilometers per hour, engines roaring like thunder, daring overtakes, drivers in sleek suits popping champagne on the podium. It looks like the ultimate modern sport, a game where the fastest wins. But the truth is, F1 is not just about speed. F1 is a battlefield of deception, strategy, and control. It's a world where teams spend hundreds of millions of dollars just to make a car go 0.3 seconds faster. A place where a billionaire's son can buy an entire team just to get a seat. Where drivers train harder than special forces and weigh their food down to the last gram just to stay razor sharp for 2 hours of non-stop intensity. It's also a place of death, tears, and silent cruelty. A young driver can crash and die, and the race will go on like nothing happened. On the surface, F1 is all about image, the brands, the champagne, the yachts in Monaco. But behind the spotlight are people who calculate every centimeter, hide every secret, and sacrifice everything, not just to win the race, but to survive in the system. F1 is not about who's fastest. It's about who understands the game. If you think the F1 season starts with the first race, you're already behind. The real game begins months earlier, on a different kind of battlefield, preseason testing. This is not the time to show strength. On the contrary, it's the time to fake weakness. Most teams don't want anyone to know how fast their car actually is. So they run with heavier fuel loads, slower tires, and restricted engine settings, just to hide their true pace. Because in F1, winning too early is a risk. If your rivals know you're strong, they'll copy you, counter you, or find a way to stop you. This tactic has a name in the paddock: sandbagging. Intentionally underperforming to deceive, like a snake playing dead, waiting for the right moment to strike. One of the greatest examples? Brawn GP in 2009. A team that was nearly shut down, running on scraps after its owner pulled out. No sponsors, a tiny budget, but hidden under the surface was a clever innovation, a double diffuser that gave them a huge aerodynamic advantage. During testing, they stayed quiet, understated, but when the season opened in Australia, they crushed everyone, and by the end of the year, they were world champions. They didn't win because they had the strongest engine or the biggest budget. They won through strategic silence. On the flip side, some teams look unbeatable in testing every single year, topping lap charts, grabbing headlines, only to flop when racing begins. Why? Because they were faking the opposite, showing off to attract sponsors, calm investors, or just mask internal chaos. In F1, sometimes you have to hide the truth to stay alive. Even from yourself. You tell the media, "We're doing fine," while your car is shaking, the engine overheating, and your engineers haven't slept in days. Outside the garages, journalists try to decode everything. Who's real? Who's bluffing? Who's sandbagging and who's sinking? But in F1, the truth is a strategic asset. You don't give it away for free. That's why the fastest car doesn't always win. The one who knows when to hide, that's the one who survives. Each F1 car costs hundreds of millions to build and run each season. But there's an uncomfortable truth behind the glamour, one that everyone knows but few say out loud. F1 is not fair. To become an F1 driver, you don't start at the top. You begin in go-karts, tiny machines on local circuits. From there, it's a brutal climb. Formula 4, then F3, then F2, and only then, if you're lucky, F1. But every step requires money. Serious money. A single season in junior categories can cost hundreds of thousands, even millions. Who pays? Your family, or a sponsor. And sponsors don't bet on unknowns. That's why names like Lance Stroll, Nikita Mazepin, and Nicholas Latifi made it to F1. Not because they lacked talent, but because their fathers had the resources to buy them a seat. Lance Stroll's father, billionaire Lawrence Stroll, literally bought an entire F1 team so his son could race. Mazepin's father, a Russian chemical tycoon, pumped tens of millions into a team to guarantee his son a cockpit. Then there are stories at the other end. Esteban Ocon, son of a humble mechanic, grew up in a caravan. He and his parents traveled across Europe, sleeping on the road, collecting used tires others had thrown away, just to keep racing. No sponsors, Just grit and survival. Alex Albon came from a broken home. His mother went to prison. His family nearly went bankrupt. No one thought he'd make it. But he fought his way in. F1 is a sport about speed, but sometimes you have to race long before you ever get on the track. If you have money, you can buy a seat. If you don't, you have to fight twice as hard just to be noticed. And even if you make it, the fight doesn't stop. Drivers from poorer backgrounds are always one sponsor short. Always one bad result away from being replaced. In F1, if your talent doesn't come with funding, your odds of making it are close to zero. You could be a natural talent, a warrior of speed, someone who never gives up. But without money, you may never even get a shot at the real track. And that raises a deeper question. Is F1 truly looking for the fastest drivers, or just the wealthiest ones? It's a question that doesn't just apply to F1. It applies to the world we live in. If you only look at the drivers, the overtakes, or the media flashbulbs, you'll miss the core of F1. The real essence of F1 lies in how people think. F1 is a place where good enough doesn't exist. Everything must be optimized, every gram of weight, every line of software code, every second of driver rest. In F1, no one says, "Can we do it?" They ask, "Can we do it better? Can we shave off 1/100th of a second? Can we do it differently than everyone else?" Take the story of Kate Reid, once an aerodynamicist at an F1 team. Then she quit racing and became a baker. But not just any baker. She opened a croissant shop in Australia. And with her F1 mindset, testing oven temperatures, calibrating butter types, controlling humidity down to the decimal, she created what many call the best croissant in the world. For her, making pastries was no different from designing an F1 car. Every day was about testing, analyzing, improving, and like a crowd watching a race, her customers don't know the science behind it, but they taste the difference. Here's another example. When COVID-19 hit, engineers from Mercedes-AMG F1 paused race development and teamed up with University College London. Their goal? Redesign a ventilator. They reverse-engineered the CPAP machine, a life-saving device, in under 100 hours. Then released it royalty-free to hospitals around the world. That's the real power of F1, extreme focus, elite teamwork, and a refusal to settle for almost right. In school, we're taught to do things the correct way. In F1, you survive by doing things a different way. When you live by standards this extreme, everything around you, from a croissant to a medical device, can become extraordinary. F1 doesn't just produce champions. It produces minds that dare to think bigger, act differently, and never accept the ordinary. On paper, Monaco is one of the dullest races of the year. The track is narrow, winding, nearly impossible to overtake. One small mistake and you're in the wall. Modern F1 cars are too big, too long, and too powerful for this tight, old-school circuit. So why is Monaco still around? Why is it called the crown jewel of Formula One? Because the answer has nothing to do with racing. It's about soft power. Monaco is not a competition. It's a stage, a theater. It's where drivers, teams, sponsors, celebrities, all come to perform. You might not watch F1 all year, but you've seen the images. Mega yachts lining the harbor, Hollywood stars next to royalty, team bosses throwing lavish parties on the water. That's visual strategy. Monaco is where F1 sends a message to the world. We're not just a sport. We're what success looks like. And when image is the weapon, Monaco is a precision strike aimed at the global elite, the billionaires, the investors, the decision makers behind every sponsorship deal. But don't be fooled. Monaco isn't just glitter and glamour. Because it's so hard to overtake. Monaco is where raw driver skill is exposed. Every corner is a trap. No runoff zones, no safety margins. Drivers must handle these 200 miles per hour machines with the precision of a brain surgeon. That's the paradox. The most glamorous race is also the most punishing. A single strategic mistake can ruin everything. Pit too late, get stuck behind traffic, or slide a few inches, and it's over. There's no second chance. In 2022, Charles Leclerc, born and raised in Monaco, was leading his home race. The dream was alive, but Ferrari pitted him too late. A few seconds of hesitation, and his dream collapsed. In Monaco, You don't just need to drive well. You need to calculate well, perform well, and endure well. This is the true nature of F1. A game where engineering, image, politics, and emotion all mix into one giant performance. And everyone playing knows, you only get one role. And it can end at any moment. F1 is where people chase dreams. But it's also where dreams end, sometimes. In a single corner, Spa, Belgium. 2019. It was raining. The track was slick. Visibility was poor. Antoine Hubert, a 22-year-old French driver, fresh off a Formula 3 championship, was on his way to F1. Until tragedy struck. He crashed at over 270 kilometers per hour. The impact hit with a force more than 81 times gravity. No human body is built to survive that. He died that day. There was no dramatic music. No national mourning. The next day, the race went on, like nothing had happened. In F1, death is not unknown. It's just something people learn to accept, but never really get used to. Back in 2014, another young talent, Jules Bianchi, crashed in heavy rain during the Japanese Grand Prix. His car hit a recovery crane on track. He fell into a coma and passed away 9 months later. He was the first F1 driver to die in action since Ayrton Senna in 1994. And he was more than just a name. He was the hero and spiritual mentor of Charles Leclerc. Every time Leclerc steps onto the podium, he looks up, not to pose for the cameras, but to remember the ones who never made it that far. Hubert's best friend was Pierre Gasly. When Gasly learned the news, he broke down in his hotel room. But the next day, he still had to race. The pain was real, but the cameras still rolled. In F1, there's no time to grieve. You have a contract, a car, a race to finish, but people are still human. One journalist tells the story of how, during that very season, his mother passed away while he was on the road with F1. There was no time to fly home. He filed his story from a hotel room, made his deadline, and only then flew back to attend the funeral. That's F1, a world that never stops for anyone. You can win, you can lose someone you love, but the race, always, goes on. And maybe that's the harshest, most beautiful truth about this world. People give their youth, their strength, even their lives, just to prove one thing. I belong here, and if they're no longer around, their legacy isn't measured in trophies. It's measured in how they're remembered. If you've stayed with us this far, then you've probably realized, F1 isn't really about cars, or speed, or who crosses the line first. F1 is a mirror of the real world, a system where power is built, defended, lost, and sometimes, reborn. Some people win through strategy, some win through money, and some win because they're willing to risk everything, even their life, for a single shot at glory. There are battles you never see on TV. Fights that happen in the data room, in the contract negotiations, in the preseason games of bluff and sandbagging. There are drivers with pure talent who never make it, because they couldn't afford it. There are fallen stars who came back stronger, because they never gave up. There are small teams with small budgets, but big ideas. And there are engineers who left racing altogether, only to change the world somewhere else, still carrying the spirit of F1 with them. And there are the names we'll never forget, because they died chasing a dream that was never guaranteed. F1 shows us that the truth isn't always fair, but it's always real. You can't fake competence forever. You can't hold on to success without evolving. And you can't survive in this game if all you know is how to go fast. F1 teaches us one rule. In a world where everyone's running, the survivor isn't the fastest. It's the one who understands the track, who knows their own limits, and who knows the game they're really playing. That's why, even in a chaotic world, people still watch F1, not just to see fast cars, but to understand the balance between speed and control, between dreams and danger, between personal ambition and the brutal laws that govern reality. F1 is a sport. It's a stage. It's a system of power. And it's a quiet reminder. If you want to truly live, never stop reading the map. Even when you're racing at 300 kilometers per hour. If this video helped you see the world a little more clearly, hit subscribe. At Know the Full Story, we tell deeper stories, stories about power, strategy, and the forces behind the headlines. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.